topic is gender audit. You might have already gone through the earlier lecture sessions about gender auditing and gender budgeting, and previous lecture we were discussed about social audit. Let us study about gender audit in this session. Myself Dr. G. Uma, I am the course coordinator for the course Gender Auditing and Gender Budgeting. Welcome to this session. Gender audit is also a social audit. It belongs to the category of quality audits as opposed to financial audits. Financial audit, they look into only the financial aspects of the any organization or institutes, even for government departments. Unlike financial audit, social audit and gender audit, it go further and it look into the existing mainstreaming, gender mainstreaming approach of the particular organization. It considers whether internal practices and related support system for gender mainstreaming are effective and reinforce each other, and whether they are being followed by the organization. This is the main objective of doing gender audit. And let us learn characteristics of participatory gender audit and methodologies of participatory gender audit and its benefits in this session. First, let me explain the characteristics of gender audit. Gender audit establishes a baseline for gender equality and equity. I have already explained what is the difference between equality and equity. As a learner, you must be already understood what is equality and what is equity. It identifies critical gaps and challenges for gender mainstreaming. You all know that what is gender mainstreaming. It is the mainstreaming gender aspects in each and every sections of the any organization or institutes. We will be studying specifically about gender mainstreaming in another session. If you listen those sessions, you will clearly understood the significance of gender mainstreaming to bring gender equity and equality. Recommends ways of addressing gender gaps. It suggests possible improvements and innovations. And it also, gender audit also documents good practices toward achievement of gender equality. The gender audit enhances collective capacity of organization to examine its activities from a gender perspective. It identifies strengths and weaknesses in promoting gender equality issues. Gender audit also monitors and assesses relative progress in gender mainstreaming. It helps build organizational ownership of gender equality initiatives. It further sharpens organizational learning on gender through the process of team building. It also help us to share the information, and we could able to reflect on genders. If you take any organization, one could able to know whether the particular organization have a capacity to reflect on gender issues. It is important to, if you take any organization, institutes or government departments, one must know that both male, female and other genders, they will be part of the organization. Due to the existing patriarchy as well as socialization process, we expect the certain genders to perform certain roles, but that is not the right way to approach gender. As well as if you take any organization, from the infrastructural facilities and organizational policies and programs, the gender should be part of the any organizational culture as well as organizational like rules, regulations. It should be part of the any organizational process. That should be very important. Thus, this gender audit certainly help us to reflect on gender in any organization, institutions, even in government departments. Let us learn what are the major aim and objectives of gender audit. Gender audit, the aim of the gender audit is to promote organizational learning on how to implement gender mainstreaming effectively in policies, programs and structures, and assess the extent to which policies have been institutionalized at the level of organization, work unit and individual. This is the first aim and objectives of the gender audit. Next one is to The aim is to generate understanding of the extent to which gender mainstreaming has been internalized and acted upon by staff. Next one is to assess the extent of gender mainstreaming in terms of the development and delivery of gender sensitive products and services, and to identify and share information on mechanisms, practices and attitudes that have made a positive contribution to mainstreaming gender in an organization. We also when we do gender audit, it also aims to assess the level of resources allocated and spent on gender mainstreaming and gender activities. You all must know that if you would bring gender sensitivity in any organizational culture, and even when we want to build gender component in any organization, we need to allocate enough resources to implement gender concerns in any organization. Even to mainstream the organizational activities, we need to have enough resources. So, this gender audit certainly will help us to assess the level of resources allocated and spent on gender mainstreaming and gender activities. It will also examine the extent to which human resources policies are gender sensitive. It will examine the staff sex balance at different levels of organization as per existing theories. At least if you take any organization, even if the organization will not able to achieve 50% of the male and 50% of the female, if you want to bring balance in the sex balance in any organization, at least you must have minimum 30% in one gender identity population, at least 70% other gender identity population. If you if you balance 70-30 ratio in any organization, then you could able to bring sex balance at different levels of organization. When we do gender audit, even we could able to understand the how many percentage of the male are part of that particular organization, how many percentage of the female are part of that particular organization. One could also set up an initial baseline of performance on gender mainstreaming in an organization with a view to introducing an ongoing process. As well as one could do we can benchmarking to measure progress in promoting gender equality, as well as one could able to measure the progress in implementing an action plans on gender mainstreaming and recommend revisions as needed. We can also identify room for improvement and suggest possible strategies to better implement the action plan. Let me explain what is participatory gender audit. Whenever we do social audit and gender audit, it should be in a participatory manner. The entire stakeholders should be part of that particular audit, then only it could able to bring the objectives of doing gender audit. So, let us learn about what is participatory gender audit. Participatory gender audit is a methodology for self-assessment of policy implementation by development programs and organization. The main aim of the participatory gender audit is that participants learn about what they are doing concerning gender equality and women's empowerment in their work. The first one is that when anyone, if they are part of the process of participatory gender audit, they will come to know that what they are doing concerning gender equality and women's empowerment in their work, and how they do it, how they relate what are doing and to what others are doing, and how they can improve what they are doing and place it in a context in which they work. The assumption is that this learning will lead to proposals for change that can translate the learning into action. The difference between this participatory audit and normal gender evaluation is that the focus of the participatory gender audit is on self-assessment, not an external evaluation. When any organization would like to do the participatory gender audit, it is like they are doing self-assessment, first starting with their infrastructural facilities, number of people working in that organization, how much they could be able to allocate the resources for gender mainstreaming, what are their organizational policies to address the gender concerns. It is like self-assessment rather than the external evaluation. The people who are employed in an organization are associated to it as a partner organization, or donors are considered as empirical experts, able and motivated to assess themselves and their organization or their partner organizations in order to improve the organization's performance on gender equality and women's empowerment. Let us learn about the methodology of participatory gender audit. The methodology of the participatory gender audit rests on a combination of 4 methodological pillars of current thinking on gender and organizational change. These 4 pillars are gender and development approach, second one is a qualitative self-assessment, third pillar is that adult learning cycle, fourth pillar is that learning organization approach. These 4 pillars of participatory gender audit methodology, let us learn one by one. First pillar is that gender and development approach. You all know what is gender and development approach. Gender and development approach as well as it is a methodology to recognize that women and men are key actors in social change. It assumes that gender relations in most of the situations are unequal. Gender inequality originates in patriarchal ideology. This is very important. When we talk about the gender and development, it has emerged from earlier or women in development, that is the WID approach. In that WID approach specifically, the WID approach targeted the women and they tried to bring certain policies and programs to improve the life of the women. Unlike women in development approach, in gender and development approach, it first assess the existing gender relations between male and female. Once it assess the existing gender relationship between male and female, then it recognize that women and men are key actors in social change. So, we need to address and we need to sensitize both men and women to bring any social change and gender justice. It assumed that gender relations in most of the situations are unequal due to the existing patriarchy as well as socialization process. Gender inequality originates in patriarchal ideology. Change towards gender equality and women's empowerment requires a change at the level of the institutions that govern our daily life, structure of our social relations, and create and maintain societies where unequal power relations are expressed in existing gender relations as well as through class, caste, religion and ethnicity. This we need to understand that gender and development has evolved into sound professional field in which organizational issues involved in changing gender relations have received increasing attention. Gender audit looks into organizational issues such as policies, strategies, activities and organizational structures and systems and pays attention to the organizational culture. The key organizational issues dealt with in a participatory gender audit are analysis of gender issues, gender debate and the women's movement in the context in which organizations program are executed, mainstreaming of gender equality and women's empowerment in policy and program development, mainstreaming gender equality and women's empowerment in strategy and activities, existing gender expertise and investment in competence and capacity building, information and knowledge management, system and instruments for analysis, planning, motivation and evaluation, structure and process of decision making in an organization and organizational culture, and staffing and human resource development policies, products and public image, choice of partner organization and their level of information about the organization's gender policy, perception of achievement. I hope you could able to see what are the key organizational issues dealt with participatory gender audit. It starts with mainstreaming gender equality and women's empowerment in policy and development as well as strategies and activities. What are the investment in competence and capacity building, information and knowledge management, systems and instruments for analysis, planning and monitoring and evaluation, structure and process of decision making in an organization, organizational culture. As I have mentioned, staffing is very important, staffing and human resource development policies, products and public image, choice of partner organization and their level of information about the organization, gender policy, perception of achievement. It should be kept in mind that the gender auditing is not an impact evaluation at the levels of the population or organization at whom the activities of the audited organizations are directed. This we must keep in mind. The second pillar is that learning organization. The learning organization approach is based on the recognition that learning and change in organizations takes place at 3 levels. One is the individual level, second one is the team level, third one is that organization as a whole level. Organization as a whole, the change may take place. In their learning organization model, Watkins and Marsick locate learning in an organization at 4 levels: individuals, teams, organization and global level. The role of team is seen as the interlinking level between individual agency and organizational policy. As far as individual level, individual learning is the way in which people make meaning, how members of the organization acquire knowledge and skills. As far as team level is concerned, team learning is the mutual construction of new knowledge and the capacity for concerned collaborative action. As far as organizational level learning is captured in standard operating procedure, policy, culture, work processes and the information systems that connect virtual teams and maintain the memory of the organization. This learning is exhibited as a new vision of what the organization might be, or by new knowledge of the organization strategy, its new products or markets or new ways to conduct business. At the global level, if you look at that, learning at global level means thinking globally, crossing boundaries of environmental as well as societal impacts, including those that affect the quality of life afforded to an organization's members by the organization. Then organizations set the agenda for learning through their objectives, vision and mandate. From individuals to teams and from teams to organizational levels, actual learning can take place and it can be interlinked. If individuals and teams do not learn, organization will never be able to adapt to multiple demands that the fast changing environment makes of them. Special attention is given in a participatory gender audit to the different teams operating in an organization, as they are considered the crucial link in the learning process between individuals and the organization as a whole. We must remember that these 3 levels of actors, individual, team and organizational, are the focus of the audit methodology. Third pillar is that constructivist paradigm, qualitative self-assessment. The third pillar of the methodology is the attention given to knowing beyond the facts in a situation, understanding the tangible and the intangible, the facts and the interpretations, allowing for objectivity and subjectivity. The methodology addresses questions such as what made things come about, why are things the way they are, why do we act the way we do, where and what are the forces of change. The methodology recognizes and seeks to bring to light differences between the way we act and the way we think we act, and the important points of reference for individual and the team and the organization. These aspects seem to be especially relevant when considering gender equality and women's empowerment issues. The gender audit is problems oriented. A problem exists when the reality in a certain situation does not match the desired situation. In this case, when the reality of gender mainstreaming and women's empowerment does not match the intentions of the organization policy, problem oriented learning implies that learning takes place on the job or related to job. This methodology further allows for questions such as, we need to ask, are we doing things in a right way? Are we efficient and effective in what we are doing? and even for more far reaching questions such as, is what we are doing the right thing to do? Is what we are trying to achieve the right thing to achieve? In short, through the qualitative self-assessment, an adult aims to understand what is being done, why it is done that way, whether it is the right or best thing to do, and whether and how it can be improved. Fourth pillar, that is the final pillar in this participatory gender auditing, that is the adult learning cycle. Finally, the participatory gender audit methodology is grounded in the principle that adults learn best when the learning experience is based on concrete experiences from their personal and professional lives. They should be able to translate these experiences through reflection and analysis into more abstract and generalized conclusions. Then it will become the basis for translated proposals for change through experimentation. These are the references. Based on these references, I have prepared this lecture. You all must be understood the participatory gender audit. In that participatory gender audit, I have explained to you, there are 4 pillars when we do the participatory gender audit. One is the gender and development approach, that is the base for do the participatory gender audit. As I have explained, is that gender and development approach, it is not only a approach, not only a theoretical understanding, it is a methodology to know the existing gender relations that exist in any organizations or institutions or government departments in society. Wherever the social institution, one could able to know the existing gender relations by applying gender and development approach. With this gender and development approach, there are various tools to know the bring necessary changes at various levels, including any organization, institutions, as well as the government departments and various social institutions. These various tools are like a gender mainstreaming, gender analysis, as well as like for example, gender sensitive development planning. These are the few tools based on gender and development approach. Thus, in the first pillar, one must apply the gender and development approach. By applying gender and development approach, one could able to know the existing gender relation in any organization and institutions. Second pillar is that qualitative self-assessment. Third one is that adult learning. One must know what is adult learning, how adult could able to learn, what are the existing conducive environment for the adult to learn. The final is that learning organizational approach. Hope this lecture will give clarity about the participatory gender audit. Let me explain further in the forthcoming sessions. Thank you so much for listening these sessions. Thank you.